I remember when I was meeting Nexus for the first time ever, I did not sleep that night. When I was doing this, my first startup, people asked me what are you doing and what is a startup? And the only response I had was Flipkart, Sachin Bansal, similar. And I built a friend of friend dating company. This was before Tinder, before Hinge.
Yeah, and I got a lot of messages saying Shilpa and Shiksha, your friend of friend.
Neha,
your friend of friend. Hi folks, welcome to the show. And today we've got Pratik Poddar with us. Pratik is a partner at Nexus, one of the most respected VCs in the country, and of course a very dear friend of mine. Pratik, I've known you for the last 16 years now, 2016 to 13 now.
Yes.
And way back then, when we were in IT and we were having our early conversations, you always told me that you wanted to be a math researcher. That's how all of this started. And fast forward today, you are a very successful VC. And in between, you've done a bunch of things that I know of, but I think the audience would love to hear the same from your own words. So how has this journey been? And we can not only talk about the last 15 years, but also way back. Let's keep this conversation meandering so that we can get to our points.
So let's do it. Even if we try, it will be meandering.
Hopefully.
So I am from Jaipur, was born in Patna. I'm from a joint family and very large family really. We have 55 brothers and sisters. I'm amongst the youngest, like second, third youngest out of all of them.
Yeah, at 55, second, third youngest also counts.
Yes. And I got a chance to say, I can afford to study and I can afford to spend my time not doing business early on in my life. And that's how the journey started. So I was interested in math, went to Kota for that and did well in JEE and went to IIT Bombay. There as well, I did not want to go outside India. I just felt that I'll feel homesick. And when I did my internships in Paris and Hong Kong, I was not very happy about it.
So did you feel homesick in some of those internships?
It seemed so different that everyone else was putting good photographs of Eiffel Tower and Sacre de Cour, and I'm like, I want to go back home. So I was not very, very happy, unlike what you would expect from a 17-year-old kid in Paris or Hong Kong.
We're glad to have you back here in India.
Now, however, luckily, because of some seniors from college, I was exposed to technology and startups. And in those days, startups really just meant building cool products that you liked.
Yeah.
So I actually built Firefox add-ons and I thought it was a startup. In every course, I wanted to launch a product. So I launched Hindi movie database on the lines of IMDb in my database course. And I thought it was a startup, right? That's how builders think. I built a Firefox add-on which got a lot of downloads and was very popular in Japan, and I thought this will be a company, and so on. I used to work for seniors and we will write code, and if I did something good that day, I'll get a Subway sandwich. Otherwise, I'll get a Cafe Coffee Day Express coffee. So it was fun, and I thought building was very, very cool. But these two parallel lines were continuing, and I joined Morgan Stanley quant group then, because everyone there was a math guy. I thought it was a good place to learn math, and we used to solve puzzles there and be happy about it. And it was fun. And when I was leaving Morgan, and at that point of time, Facebook IPO had happened, social network movie had come, Ola was doing very well, Snapdeal, Flipkart were doing very well. So it seemed that this is the time. Just a builder mindset, curious builder mindset. iPad had come, and I thought iPad will be a new platform and new companies will get created on top of it. Quora was just starting, and you could see that Quora was being distributed on Facebook. Yeah. So these small things were exciting. And I said, I need to go back to building and I'll become an entrepreneur.
One fun tool that became extremely popular that you built was Tomo. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
If I say it like it was a dating website, it will not sound very cool. So I actually thought about it in this context that if you create a layer of trust between two people, then the cost of transaction will go down. And Tomo no Tomo is Japanese, is friend of friend in Japanese. And I built a friend of friend dating company. This was before Tinder, before Hinge, and it became viral in some sense. I had some good growth hacks. It was on a Hacker News front page for 7 days. It had more than 10 million users. Information. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and I got a lot of messages saying Shilpa and Shiksha, your friend of friend.
Neha,
your friend of friend.
But long-term engagement was not there, monetization was not there, and it went down. And I always say this, when you're an entrepreneur and things are not working for you, you end up building lots of products. It's not one product that you are working that just works. So I tried dating, I tried content marketing, I tried social commerce. In my head, all of them were connected in some ways, but it's just very difficult to tell the story coherently if nothing worked.
Correct.
And it's okay.
And I think that journey, that step from going one to the other, to the other, to the other, that's the important part, right? That's the learning part.
You learn every new thing. You are better and smarter about it. And more importantly, when I meet entrepreneurs now, I can feel some of the awesome things that I had done then that people are doing, and I was good. Yeah. And I can also see the small things around investor communication, co-founder communication, like all the mistakes that I did. I see entrepreneurs doing it today, and it's when you relive that, it's different. And
having done through that gives you a lot of perspective or understanding कि okay, ये गलत है, ये नहीं होना चाहिए, या ये सही कर रहा है, ये basic चीजें सही है, you should continue this.
Or focusing on growth before product market fit. Like those small things, mistakes people do. I've of course done a lot of them. So you can just get the pulse of it very easily.
Got it.
That I think is the biggest outcome from that experience in my life.
Got it. So I think there was a point that you mentioned while giving this answer that I think I've always wanted to double down on and go deeper. I think that one of the biggest assets that going to IIT has given me personally is giving access to network. And network and relationships is incredibly important. And more I spend time building company, I realize that more, right? And you've echoed some of that right now. So any tips as to how do you build relationships with people? How do you grow a network? How do you make that network not only, at the end of the day, it's not going to happen that you're just going to be one-way sourcing from that network, right? How do you enrich that network and how do you get back from it? Like what's your tribe or your that surrounding network look like?
Yeah. I know you did not ask it with that intent, but I actually have a very strong point of view here, and I've thought about it very deeply.
Okay.
So you know that when I just came to college, I was not a very social person. Like I remember we used to play frisbee then, and I was the most socially awkward person in that group.
Yeah.
I think entrepreneurship changed it for me because I got connected to a lot of forever givers.
Got it.
And that was beautiful because a lot of these people just gave without any reason. And then you felt that you wanted to be in that club. That to me was a big inflection point. And like most people who join VCs are doing well in life, right? They are went to top B school or did something well, and then they're joining VC firms. I did not join with that place, right? I was disappointed and dejected and very unhappy in life when all my startups had failed and nothing was working out and I was not able to do anything right in my startups. I wanted to work with good people.
Correct.
And I found good people at Nexus, and that's how Nexus and I chose each other. But that philosophy continued. So for the first year, I used to have these doubts that do I deserve this salary? I was not able to sit well with myself, thinking what am I doing every day and why am I getting this salary? Because after you're an entrepreneur, you are hungry for money.
Correct.
It just is.
After you've been eating vada paos for course of a month.
So it feels like if I get one good person placed in one company, I'm done. And also because in my VC experiences, some VCs were not very good to me. I remember those meetings exactly. So I made sure that I give as much as possible in every meeting. Again, this was just, I don't think I was that person earlier, but just my experiences made me that person.
Got it.
And one small thing I have done, I have almost sent a passing email to everyone I have ever talked to, which does not happen in the industry.
Correct.
I think that small thing matters to entrepreneurs. Just doing it right. Just making sure you communicated clearly. Of course, we'll not do most investments there. I talk to maybe 2,000 entrepreneurs, 1,000 entrepreneurs a year, and I would do 2 or 3 investments a year. That's
correct.
So, but I think that process has been good, and that to me is my biggest inflection point as a personality. That just give all in every meeting.
Got it.
We get to meet a lot of entrepreneurs, but for the entrepreneur, every meeting is somehow remembered better. So it's important to give all in and be a giver in the system.
Give all in, try and help out wherever you can without expectation of return later on.
And that's
the hack to
network. I remember when I was meeting Nexus for the first time ever as an entrepreneur, I did not sleep that night, because for me, I was meeting Suvir, founder of Bazi, founder of Nexus.
Correct.
And I did not sleep that night, because in my head, the next day will be important for me.
Correct.
And every entrepreneur, like many entrepreneurs, of course now the ecosystem has matured more, but many entrepreneurs still feel that, and it's our job to make sure that we at least follow the process right.
Got it. So, in this conversation, I think one thing that is there in my list, but now that you mentioned it right now, let's try and bring that up. What's one company that you passed on that you regret? I'm sure there are quite a few, but one company that you passed on that you regret now in hindsight. And maybe if you can add more color, why did you pass originally, and what evolved and what changed in your thinking that you think that you did the wrong thing?
Yeah, so almost all good companies I have passed on. My gut instinct on the founder was right. My gut instinct on the space was very, 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 very wrong. But there have been companies where I have actually sat with the founder after the meeting that, yeah, I'm passing from Nexus perspective, but buddy, like, this is a problem. Why are you not thinking about it this way?
Correct.
Let me know if I can, like, yeah, these are the guys you should talk to. These guys have done this and they have failed. I'll help you. And those companies are very large now.
One example of such a space?
Here, like Misho, it was so obvious to me that reseller network is a feature on commerce that is not funny.
Got it.
But, and when I talk to people now, they're like, of course you were wrong. Larger companies cannot do everything, which I also know that larger companies cannot do everything. Yeah. But sometimes larger companies do something and the smaller companies shut down. So I was intellectually honest about it, but I was, of course, terribly wrong. Interestingly, we were able to take the same bet on Rapido. It is a competitive market. Larger companies existed.
Correct.
But there we were able to take a bet.
I think all in our biases and all in our learnings.
Well, bad part about this is there are a lot of these learnings. It's difficult to apply a lot of these learnings in future as well. You can just know that you'll do this mistake, but you'll still apply the same framework. That would it be a feature on a larger company? How would you not break that bias?
So what are then basically just thinking of that particular feature in another company from a different lens, right?
So that's a very fine line, and applying that judgment requires maybe more experience and more failures and successes.
Yeah. I think another very interesting point that I always wanted to touch on, and we discussed this in separately, but you've been a capital allocator at Nexus, participating in the investment process at Nexus. But how does your own personal investment process look like when you are allocating your own money? And by that, what I want to understand is where do you park your funds? Is it FDs? Is it mutual funds? Is it, let's say, US stocks or riskier investments? So how do you think of all of that, and where have you allocated currently, and what of this has changed?
Yeah. So because I come from a business family, Marwari business family, and my dad is in real estate. So understandably, we would have more exposure to real estate than most other people. The first thing we worked on after I also started looking at it was that real estate exposure has to reduce.
Got it.
So at one point of time, like maybe 90% of our family's wealth would be in real estate, which is of course illiquid and risky and so on. So that is the first thing we fixed. I think, but even today, I would argue 50% of it is real estate, which is not ideal in my opinion. But
real estate is this hard asset class also to adjust, right? In a country like India, you don't have ability to fractionalize it and somehow get exposure.
Exactly.
So that's the problem with real estate.
Yeah, and because you always had access, because they are in Jaipur, they had access, they thought they have special information and they're part of the network. So it was just easy to do real estate transactions, while everything else requires more jumping. And like startup investments, real estate also is not being priced every day.
Correct.
So you're not getting jumpy about it, unlike mutual funds or stocks, where you get jumpy, it's 30% down, or 40% down, it's 20% up.
Here
you don't get jumpy.
Yeah.
So it is, and it exists.
Illiquidity is a feature.
Illiquidity is a feature, like in startup investments.
Yeah.
So I think we would still have 50% in real estate. However, what I started doing after that, I think we have not done good stock investments. It just requires focus, it requires hard work. And with the day job, I don't think I want to spend time on that.
Correct.
A lot of people tell me I should do that just because it will make me a better private market investor. So there's some play money which I used to learn.
Correct.
But I don't think I have focus, energy and motivation and time to just do stock market investment.
I think just the sheer time that it takes to do it really well is, it's a full-time job.
It's a full-time job. So then I started investing a bit on mutual funds, which was easy in some sense. Pick 5, diversify, 60% large cap, then
some small cap,
mid cap. But then I realized that mutual funds is perhaps not the most efficient allocator.
Correct.
Of resources. So then I started spending some more time learning about these
AIFs.
And then I have invested in
2 AIFs.
Got it. So that seems to be compounding. Of course, the market is doing well right now, but more importantly, again, there is limited liquidity there. So because there is no liquidity, it is there and it feels
stress free.
It's stress
because you know you can't do much.
Exactly.
That's okay.
The other thing I am doing is every month, 20% of my monthly salary I am sending to in an SIP.
Got it.
So that way, and that to me seems like the right strategy. That by God's grace, hopefully, like savings will continue, and the savings are continuing.
Then you've got a cushion build up for life.
Eventually, because it is being compounding, it will work out.
Got it.
And there are some assets that I have deployed maybe 5-6% of my total net worth in, which are riskier or more exploratory. So crypto and US stocks I'd put in that bucket.
Got it.
So, and just 2 stocks in US and 3 coins. That's it. Very concentrated there, but that's because it's
anyways the engine. That's what you'd want to do.
Exactly.
Got it. Very interesting point about the SIP thing that you mentioned. I think for me personally, I've only been doing recurring investments throughout my life. And it's always been, of course, there has been some one-off large lump sum investments that you've put in, but I've always put in SIP investments, but rather actually just SIPs in index funds or mutual funds. And I think maybe that's that bias, but that's our thinking as well why we've been building Mudrex, that crypto is this large asset class that's growing and scaling that will eventually be huge. It is one such opportunity of creating wealth in which is generational, potentially generational. And the best way to participate in that wealth creation is maybe just simply putting in a fixed amount of money month over month, a small amount that doesn't really matter to you, but over time with compounding as that adds up, it should hopefully create a lot of wealth for all of us. So that's why
100%.
At our end, we focus a lot on making people understand that the best way to invest is actually just doing the simple things, right? Which is parking some amount of money either every day, every week or every month into this asset class and making it grow.
100%.
Yeah. We are talking about crypto. If you remember way back in 2013, you, me and a bunch of our friends started a thread. The title of that said that BTC went from $13 to $138. Are we too late to invest? That thread has one statement from you first saying, of course you should not invest. It is all a scam and it is going to go away. And then 3-4 years later in 2017 saying, in hindsight, we were so stupid, we should have done this. And then that continues, right? Even today, like the last message was, I think, put in by me only a few months ago saying that BTC is at 25K. Is this now a good time to buy, right? So what are your thoughts about crypto? How has that thinking evolved as, of course, the asset class itself has evolved?
Yeah. So by the way, that thread is a very, very important thread for our lives.
Yeah.
In the sense that we have seen that how arrogant and how confident you could be is such a good reflection. You can see such a good reflection of that in that thread.
Correct.
That we were all, and because it was a closed thread and we're only friends, we didn't need to be politically correct, right?
Correct.
All of us thought we knew so much, like either on the downside or on the upside, that this is the answer to it.
Correct.
But we were all terribly stupid about it. I think what I would take away though was that it was good to be excited about the technology early on, because the technology is magical. We are actually pushing boundaries of human knowledge in some sense when we genuinely adopt decentralization, and that is what crypto / Web3 is doing.
Correct.
Pricing aside, which is more speculation, I think,
and although more short term.
The long term value in crypto truly should be there on the basis of the efficiency it creates in the system.
Correct.
And the community value it unlocks. The two things where we have been very, very wrong as an ecosystem. One is there are players who have done things wrongly, and that will hurt the ecosystem. So after a few years, we realized that one guy actually hurt the ecosystem more.
Correct.
Than anyone else.
Yeah.
And second mistake we have done is that we have still not been able to figure out a real applicable use case.
Got it.
If these two things were not there, then it was very easy that in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we would be in the nirvana state.
Got it.
But I think as a community, we need to do better work to ensure that there is better protection of consumer money.
Correct.
And we are thinking more long term from a use case perspective as well, beyond the speculative nature of the ecosystem.
Correct. Because I think, of course, the technology part is important, but it's also more of a social revolution that's going on, right? Mentally, for the people who are die-hard Bitcoin maximalists, they think of the world very differently. The change is a more social adoption change. It's a narrative change of what are truths and what are wrong, and what institutions you have value in, and so on and so forth. And some of that, I think, will just take a bunch more time to evolve.
As I remember, in 2017, Rohit and I met, and 2017, after a couple of months, you and I met as well. And when you talked about crypto then, it seemed it seemed something like you're the first guys who really told me about startups that can be built on crypto.
Correct.
Because 2017 was you had already built a startup.
Yeah,
you had sold a startup. You had gone through one journey. Yeah. What gave you confidence then?
No, I think with the attraction was always there. The technology was always very attractive, and as you know, tech geeks, that's what gets you in. But I think what changed really was this real understanding that over time, as crypto evolves and the tech becomes better, it is just a much more efficient way of doing the normal financial services transaction. So the bet, that's the bet that we took, now 6 years ago, and that still continues to be the primary bet that drives me to come to office every day, is that the fact that as this technology evolves and as the efficiency improves, more and more financial services will move here, because that's a marketplace setup, right? Efficiencies drive larger transitions. And over time, what has also happened is that some regulatory changes have happened, first for the bad and now for the good. And we are seeing that clarity emerge more and more and more. I'm now even much more confident that that change will happen simply because it's a much more efficient way of doing things. If I want money, from storing money, accessing money, doing transactions, to getting loans, getting insurance, getting payments, and so on and so forth, right? I think we're very early in all of that stage. And as you rightly said, today, more the investment part and the savings part are the parts that are being taken care of. In some sense, a lot of this is still marked around speculation, but that's fine. I think that's the nature for almost every asset class that's out there. So as investments and savings evolves along with the technology evolving, I think this will continue to come to mainstream more and more and more. It is also a social change. It's not just like you and me deciding to do it, right? The community needs to adopt it, and that requires a much longer time. So I think for me, it was the tech, of course, the tech geekiness plus this general thought process that it's a much more efficient way of doing things. It is money built for the age of the internet, and if it is money built for the age of the internet, as internet penetrates more and more parts of our everyday lives, as all services, all products, all goods, all value transfer moves more and more to the internet, this is just a much more natural way of how the transaction monetization should happen and how that value capture should happen. That was crypto for me.
Interestingly, you said almost the same things then. Yeah. Nothing has changed from that.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing else has changed yet.
Good.
Yeah. So moving on from crypto to startup ecosystem in India, right? Like you are as deep as it can get into the startup ecosystem, and we will do it in 3 parts. We'll talk about the past, the present, and the future, right? So that we can cover that spectrum. Let's first talk about the past. It's been close to now 10 odd years that both of us have been deeply involved in this, and over that decade, like I think almost everything has changed, right? So I would love to hear your perspective, going back 2013, 14, 15, and now talking about 2023 and 24, 25, what were the large changes that have happened? And we'd love to talk about some of the good and the bad both in this context. So how is startup investing or the startup ecosystem evolved and matured over the last 10 odd years?
Yeah. So I'll talk about it in multiple contexts. One is just the market. Just because of geo, payment penetration increase, UPI penetration, we are seeing supremely high adoption. Like I was just looking at a deck from 2014 where it is talked about that the market has 60 million users, out of which 3 million are potentially paying users.
Correct.
And that was the market then.
Correct.
And today everything is different.
Yeah.
And India is a real large economy with very high digital penetration, and it works. So that is a big change.
Correct.
The second change that has happened is around the maturity of the founders and investor ecosystem. So I remember 2014, I built a news summarization app in shorts in some sense. And I used to show it to the users and show it to friends and investors, and people were like, good traction. But for some reason, none of us ever talked about retention. We didn't know that retention needs to be measured, or what is retention. I didn't know what retention is.
Correct.
An ex-entrepreneur told me, Pratik, you should measure this. This is how you'll know whether your product is working or not.
Correct.
Just the ecosystem was not mature. Like I was only surrounded by entrepreneurs, but none of us were talking about the right metrics, the right cultures, the right team building strategies, and so on.
Correct.
Today the market is much more mature. Many entrepreneurs I get to work with are repeat entrepreneurs. This is your second funded stint, and like I said, many experiments in between. So the ecosystem is much more mature, which makes it much better. And investors are also seeing cycles. So just the employees understand the value of ESOPs.
Correct.
I remember when I was doing my first startup, people told me, what are you doing? People asked me, what are you doing and what is a startup? And the only response I had was Flipkart, Sachin Bansal, similar. Like that's how you have to explain what startups are.
Is.
But now Modi is talking about startups, so it's all good. So that's the second big change. The third change is supply of capital has increased tremendously. Now deals happen in 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Correct.
And you know that once it's done, it's done.
Correct.
So the ecosystem, the supply of capital has increased. The capital markets have become very competitive, which is good for the entrepreneurs as well and good for investors as well because velocity is higher.
Correct.
Till a few years back, exits was a challenge, but now with the IPOs, exits was a challenge that has been fixed. So I think the ecosystem has matured in all ways, but we are still very early.
Yeah.
We still need higher penetration in the SME sector. We need higher penetration from a payments perspective. We need for a lot of services that digitization has not happened yet. Insurance is still 4% digitized.
Correct.
Like for healthcare services, not digitized enough. So there's still a lot of room for higher penetration, and that is the exciting part about it.
Correct. Right. So what does the next decade do you think look like? Right. Doubling down on this. Just like how you said, Aadhaar and UPI was one large tailwind that pushed everything ahead, and so was just Jio and 4G and that coming in pushing everything ahead, right? So what macro tailwinds do you see right now? I mean, of course it's hard to predict, but what macro tailwinds do you see right now that will push this ecosystem ahead, and maybe some 2 macro headwinds also that you think will impact how everything will pan out over the next 10 years?
Yeah. So candidly, Edul, I've tried to have this point of view many times and I have failed every time.
Yeah.
So it's so difficult to predict the right platform.
Yeah, macro is impossible.
However, what are the potential tailwinds out there? So Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker was the first few elements of the stack.
Correct.
I sincerely think health stack is very early, but ONDC in my head seems to be there, and I'm very bullish on the impact that ONDC should create. I know the market is not very conducive right now, but I would argue Web3 is another wave. It's a technology wave that was created, and on top of which new companies are getting created, will get created.
Correct.
Which to me makes sense. The another technology wave that is active right now is the generative AI piece. Today, generative AI is, from a consumer perspective, is being very useful for large companies like Google and Microsoft.
Correct.
Or hobby project developers who will make some money.
Feature in a big company.
I don't know yet what is the fat middle layer in between, but sincerely, there's an opportunity to ride on that wave. But I'll be candid, it's impossible for someone like me to figure out that wave. It just takes, once the option happens, it happens. During UPI days, we were so sure that it will not work, right?
Yeah.
The mindset that all banks will use it. What if there's an error? What if money gets deducted and it does not come?
Like I remember 2016 when we were first integrating this in Tabzo and I was taking care of the payments part. I was on one side extremely excited about UPI because now suddenly no payment processors, nothing in between, and it should all hopefully magically work.
Yeah.
But yet it just seemed so weird that, okay, we need to set up a separate PIN. I need to go to a bank and do some approval. Like success rates of banks are shitty, like 60% success rates. Why will UPI ever work?
Exactly.
Right? And like could not have been more wrong.
Exactly. And instant settlement. It's so worrisome, right? That if money does not get deducted, but it shows it just...
Yeah, because the settlement part where the deduction happens first and you were always like, what the fuck, paisa cut gaya?
Exactly.
Ye kya hoga?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. I think it's very difficult to predict those waves.
Yeah.
But I would argue that's the evolution of technology, right? New waves come every few years.
Yeah.
And it's important to predict that and ride that.
So, as this evolves, of course, the VC ecosystem will evolve and more people do want to become VCs, right? So, any thoughts about what kind of people should apply to become a VC, or what does one need to do to become a VC now? Of course, the ecosystem should grow, more people will come in and so on and so forth. So, what do you think is advice from your end to people who are wanting to become VCs? What are some of the things that they should do?
Yeah, so I think a lot of things the firm teaches you. The firm tells you the framework for investing, what is the right type of founder or the right type of company and sector. The firm might be wrong, but a lot of that learning is driven by the firm. So I would think that those things are not as important if you're joining as a very young VC.
Got it.
And when I say very young, like less than 30-year-old type VC,
got it.
I would think the person should under-index on. What is important is curiosity, because it is somewhat of a lonely job because you are working alone. So unless you have curiosity, you will not be excited about it.
Got it.
High hustle. It is, like I said, no one is really managing anyone. And because no one is managing anyone, it is self-driven. You need to work hard every day.
Correct.
And you need to create opportunities for you every day. So I think curiosity and hustle are the two important aspect. Most other things the firm
Will teach you.
The ability for you to learn from the firm depends on the humility.
Correct.
That you have to understand that you will be wrong a lot of times. Then the firm will be wrong a lot of times. Ecosystem will be wrong a lot of times. And you have to absorb all those learnings and grow. I think these are the three things. Everything else is broadly more learnable.
Got it. Understood. And let's zoom in now a bit to the current the current environment, right? Like the last year has been, we've already seen the numbers, and it seems like startup investing in general is about 60-70% now, not only in India but world over. Right? And it seems like this new environment where interest rates are high and money and supply of capital is not immediately available is changing how things are being invested in. So what are your views on the environment right now? What are some of the good things happening? What are some of the bad things happening? And any advice that you would give to current founders, and for that matter, current VCs as well. So how do they look at this environment?
Yeah, so candidly, this is my first real down cycle, right? The last down cycle came when I was a young associate, so I did not feel the pinch as much.
This is 17, 18.
16, 17.
17.
This is the time when I am feeling the impact for the first time, that I am working with founders where fundraising is challenging or demand markets are soft, and I am feeling the heat for the first time ever. So whatever I say will be only from this one experience. So I think the mistakes we did as an ecosystem is we assumed money will be available forever. I want to make this statement cautiously because I don't want to pull the pendulum on the other extreme.
Correct.
But we thought about profitability lesser than we should have. We thought about growth more than we should have, which is wrong. And
correct.
And I'm sure the ecosystem and all of us and all the founders and investors are correcting themselves. The other place where I think we are still doing it wrong, in most companies we do not even talk about fixed costs. So we talk about CM3, but
can you explain for the people what CM3 is?
So all the variable cost in the business, marketing cost, like brand marketing cost, everything removed. After that, whatever is left is CM3. Below CM3, it's only fixed cost like team cost and office rent and
correct
and so on. So as in tech startups, the argument is as you grow, the fixed cost will remain the same, and variable cost will be, if CM3 is positive, variable cost will increase over time as you scale, but revenue will also increase, and so it's okay, and fixed cost will be covered over time as the company scales.
Correct.
But in majority of startups in India, where at the end of the day AOV is smaller and revenues are lesser than American counterpart, high fixed costs are never justified.
Correct.
And our startups in general have higher fixed costs than they should have compared to US counterparts if you index it against revenue. And I think most of us don't even talk about it. We just talk about being CM3 positive and that's it. Eventually people will need to go towards EBITDA positive, PAT positive.
Correct.
And when that journey is happening, then you feel the pinch of a bloated cost structure that we have built.
Correct.
And that I think is another discussion that we should be having more and more in board meetings, that a lot of startups should control their fixed cost from early on, because reducing that later is far more challenging.
Extremely great. So this is like the negative side, but what are some of the positives that are also happening in this period?
Yeah, I would say this is positive only. The way I would think about it is that fat is being removed. Companies are getting are
becoming healthier.
VC funds are being focused. One fund told me that earlier we were experimenting with newer categories and newer geographies. VC funds are also focusing. Companies are also focusing. That is the right answer for everyone. Too much experimentation beyond the core before the core is profitable is not right.
Correct.
And again, I want to ensure that we are not pulling the pendulum on the other extreme. There is a good middle path, and that path needs to be taken.
And just like how you have. I understand the setup right now. So any request for startups that you think are interesting spaces that you have in mind, right? Like YC famously has this thread called as request for startups, where they outline all the spaces and all the kind of problems that they think are large problems that no one is working on, but are valuable, that if done right by the right team and who have the right, assets, can actually solve for a very large meaningful market. Any request for startups in your mind?
Yeah, I actually think there are lots of problems around us.
Yeah, of course.
And we just need to fix them one by one. Like, so I would argue in commerce, so I would pick it by spaces.
Yeah.
So in commerce, I am very excited about vertical retail platforms. So I actually think that there are, for a lot of things, there is no trusted place to buy. Like Amazon, Flipkart are large, but for many verticals, they cannot inspire trust, and they do not have enough high quality supply as well. Whether it's furniture, whether it's pet brand, whether it's baby product, whether it's nutrition product, I think in all these categories, we would have more verticalized retailers / brands.
Got it.
And I'm very excited about it. And think about it, what Decathlon did for sports. Something like that needs to happen in other categories as well.
Correct.
Or what Nykaa did in beauty and something like that needs to happen in other categories. That does not mean Amazon or Flipkart will not be successful. It's just that those rivers are large enough, and if you create quality supply, quality and trust, there will be value created. So on commerce, this is it. On education, I think a lot has been done on K-12 side, on test prep, English learning, and other categories, but continuous learning is still pending. Enterprise-driven learning is still pending, in my opinion. They are only global companies, but Indian companies have not yet become large, and there is a lot of opportunity, in my opinion. So education is there. Amongst new platforms, I think ONDC is an open opportunity for a lot of founders, and a lot more founders should fight on it, in my opinion. On the generative AI bit, like I said, there is no consumer use case yet.
Correct.
And I'm sure people will be figuring it out. I'm excited about the tools that can be created for developers and for enterprises to manage their workflows better. I am very excited about we have now proof points that Indian founders can create global consumer companies. In Nexus portfolio, we have Headout, Quizzes, Ultrahuman, Mudrex, White Hat, when it started. Like all these guys, and I'm sure there are more, they are not really SaaS products. You are all consumerish products, global consumerish products from India.
Correct.
Which was unheard of earlier, and I think that is an open opportunity. So I'm actually very excited about consumer products and services from India for the global markets. Yeah, so lots of exciting opportunities.
That's exciting. Yeah. Great. Let's pivot a bit to kind of a rapid fire section, but I would not want you to give the answers brief. The questions will be short and sweet.
Okay.
So let's start off by first one very core belief that you had that was very strongly held, but that got recently changed because of some new perspective that came in life. So any thoughts about some core beliefs that you changed recently?
Yeah, I thought that larger companies have a lot of right to win, but I have now realized that in most cases, smaller companies have been able to fight and win.
Well, why does that? What do you think gives smaller companies the edge?
Yeah, this is the agility and the focus that changes everything. I think.
Got it.
For so many years, I know it was stupid to ask this question that why would Google not do it? But I didn't realize it is stupid to ask this question, why would a Flipkart not do it, or Swiggy not do it, or Amazon not do it?
Got it. Understood. Let's say you had the billboard on Silkboard available for rent for one day, right? What favorite message or quote would you want to put on that billboard telling the world about some thoughts that you have that the world would change?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Okay, very interesting. Don't take yourself too seriously. Great. One person who you would love to have dinner with, dead or alive or fictional for that matter, over like a 2-hour-long conversation.
Charlie Munger, because of course not because just investment learning,
correct,
but just the life learning and the framework to be happy, framework to be long term.
That man is a legend.
And I think just the effect of compounding in all things in life, whether it's relationships, whether it's salary, whether it's trust in a company, job, like everything just compounds. So just the focus on compounding, I think most of us don't think about it as clearly. And whenever I have heard Charlie speak, I just seek that compounding when 90 plus compounding anyways happens.
And also that clarity of thought that comes in every word that is coming out just seems so much more thought over, right? Like if he's saying something for 2 minutes, you probably have spent maybe a couple of weeks thinking about that. Like that clear clarity of.
And a lot of times you don't even understand it then, but 1 year later, I read it then.
Exactly. That's what happened. One, your favorite book, and it doesn't need to be just one. You can maybe talk about a list.
One book that I really love and I recommend to a lot of people is How to Build a Habit or How to Change Your Habit. Sorry, I'm missing the name. By Duhigg. I think it's a magical book for me. The book talks about the psychology of what happens when you are changing a habit or how you build a habit.
Got it.
It's a beautiful book. It's so simple but yet practically applicable.
Got it.
Similarly, Psychology of Money is a must-read book in my opinion. So simple, but Morgan has articulated it better than you could ever imagine. And again, this is one of those books that you think about every 2 weeks, that I would think about it this way, but Psychology of Money said correct that this is the way to think about it.
It's also so timeless, right? Like that's the part that's beauty. Like all the lessons there could have been same applicable 300 years ago, and will likely be applicable 300 years.
I agree. In fact, maybe I just want to say this, that book should be read every 2 years.
Correct.
Because then you'll just have a sharper focus.
Correct. One habit that you are wanting to form right now, that you're working on forming right now.
Yeah, so I'm actually being very disciplined about it right now.
Yeah, I can see that you were much slimmer in the last month and a half.
So I just going to the gym every day.
Got it.
And again, I think it's just about doing one thing every day without fail, just showing up every day. So no end state. I'm not looking to lose weight. I'm not looking to go somewhere.
Any one recent product or service, that you would have bought under, let's say, 10,000 rupees that you are really enjoying? And it can be much lesser also. Maybe something worth 150 gives you much more happiness.
Electric toothbrush.
Seriously?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
By the way, I've always wondered and wanted to, but would love to hear your recommendation.
So I actually heard it in some interview that what is the best gift you have given to yourself recently, and the answer was electric. Like, it's stupid. Who are these people who are not able to move their hands?
Exactly my point.
It just sounds so stupid.
Yeah.
But I'm not kidding. It's just so many rotations, 1,000 rotations per something. The experience is different. And I know it sounds stupid, but I felt the same way when I heard it in an interview earlier, and I thought it's a good fit.
Now at least your teeth are smiling so much, and there is that shine on your face. Great. So I think that's about it, Pratik. We've been at it for the last, I think, hour and 20 minutes now. Yeah, wow, I didn't notice it as well. Great having you in this conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
for coming over.